local, and she came on. I can't remember if it was the beginning of, no, it had to have a year ago. Um, Talking about inclusive heathenism and
Nice.
what are the warning signs to make sure that you don't accidentally end up in a white supremacist group
Yes. Important.
and
Importance.
you know, all of those important things. All right. So I do believe that we are live. Let me double check the technologies here. Those of y'all who are longtime watchers of group tarots, monthly conversations, know that I have no desire to learn new technology. So I double check everything on the YouTube app of my phone. So when you are wanting to say hi and fantastic, everything is working, and I am thrilled to be joined with Charlie Burgess, author of Radical Tarot and the upcoming queer devotion that I literally fell asleep to reading last night. Old school, and my early reader is a PDF, so I'm scrolling on my phone. I want to. I'm dreaming.
I hope it gave you good dreams.
If it did, I did not remember them, but I hope so. I believe that they did, even though I don't remember them.
Good.
Um, Charlie and I met 2 years ago at Northwest Tarot Symposium, or three.
Uh, it was either 1 year or 2 years ago because I wasn't there 3 years ago. So
Okay, great. Then it
yeah,
was two
either
years ago
yeah.
because this most recent one, I just came as I just came on the very last day to enjoy the marketplace and say hi to friends and such because of rehearsals of a show.
So that must have been
So
2023. Yeah.
there we go. So 2023 is when Radical Tarot was first introduced to me in your class, and um I loved it, and I am a little ashamed to admit, but I'm putting this out there in the world because I think it is important to remind ourselves, even for those of us who have been queer and out for a very long time, how insidious cis heteronormative thinking is.
Yeah.
That when I first saw your book, rather than being excited about something else for the queer canon and radical thought and radical tarot and such, I my first thought was, but Cassandra has already written a book
Yeah.
on this, and it is fantastic. Why are they trying to take away from Cassandra? Like, what, why? And then I stopped myself, and all of this is my internal monologue. Thankfully, I did not put, like, I am putting this out there in the world because of illustrating teaching by example.
hmm
Have I ever once thought, hmm, there are too many times in tarot books and tarot literature where it's about heterosexual relationships. Have I ever
Uh-huh.
once had that thought? No, no, I had not. So why in the world was my first thought that there was not room for two or
Well,
more?
and that's exactly right. And I'm friends with Cassandra. Cassandra wrote the foreword for that book, for my book. And then
Oh,
also
good.
like the more voices, the better, right? So there's Cassandra's wonderful work. There's also Lane Smith has a wonderful, wonderful book, 78 Acts of Liberation, which is takes a even more like liberatory lens, like specifically matching cards to like social justice work,
Yes.
social justice movements and stuff. And so it's a really great, it's not really like intro to tarot book, but it's a really, really wonderful book that helps with like merging or like bridging the archetypal world of tarot into like the real world
Mm,
of action. And
yes.
so like I really value it for that. Even like Queer Devotion, my book that's coming out in May, that exists in an already existing canon of wonderful queer authors and trans authors that have written wonderful magical works, including Cassandra, who wrote Granger Craft,
Mhm.
Ariana Serpentine, who wrote Sacred Gender, Misha Magdalene, who wrote Outside the Charmed Circle. Like, just the more voices, the better. And we have such a plethora of works, of books and decks, and podcasts and YouTube channels that are already, examining tarot or magic or spirituality through just a automatically sort of unexamined cis heterosexist lens,
Mhm.
like not even questioning the like
Mhm.
viability of like the divine masculine and feminine and just like accepting that as like just fact, just like the way things are. And so like, the more other voices with queer perspectives, trans perspectives, non-white perspectives, indigenous perspectives, um, disabled perspectives,
Mhm.
all of this, the more the better. The more
Yeah.
the better. And I think that's something that like everyone who is working in these spheres like feels that. Like everybody's like, yes. And we all bring something different to it. Like none of us are just like reiterating each other's work exactly. There's
Mhm.
always something new
Yeah.
that's being brought to the conversation and to the table.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
actually one of the things that I haven't finished Queer Devotion yet, but one of the things that I've appreciated from Queer Devotion and Radical Tarot is I I feel like I'm really reading and witnessing a growth in your, not growth, a depth, like a deepening of your voice and perspective, because I can't, there were a couple things in Radical Tarot that um and I don't, you can see I've bookmarked a lot of things, but I don't remember
Good.
exactly where it was that struck my ear. And of course, reading tone is
Mhm.
not easy in any medium.
Yeah.
So, like, first, the tone that I was hearing in my head very much could not be the tone that you intended.
Mhm.
Where it hit me as a little orthodoxy of
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was somewhere in the separation and the thought process around divine feminine, divine masculine, divine, and the what I took away of those should not exist,
Hmm.
to in Queer Devotion a a sense more of less of divine masculine and divine feminine should not exist, to can you even imagine what it would be like to
Hmm.
be outside of that binary,
Yeah.
which for me, while I'm a cis woman, but I have always believed for myself and for others that masculine and feminine energies are in every body,
Hmm.
that that flows more for me in my lived experience. And I'm curious how you feel your thoughts and philosophies have shifted, deepened, expanded from writing Radical Tarot to Queer Devotion.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And I love that. And I think that both of those words that you said at the beginning were correct, both depth and growth, because there has been growth and there's always, I mean, I hope there's always growth. If it's going in the opposite direction, like that's that's not that's not desirable. We want
Yeah,
we
there
want
are
more.
enough parts of the country that are doing that. Like, let's
Yeah.
not have that be in these worlds.
Yeah, we want growth. We want change in like, like good expansive directions. Um, and yeah, I mean, so absolutely my perspective has grown and deepened, and gotten more, I don't know, nuanced maybe. I don't think that's exactly the right word. But it's part of a process. So like several things happened between Radical Tarot, or writing Radical Tarot and then writing Queer Devotion. One of those things was that I got top surgery, and I actually got top surgery like within the month after turning in the manuscript for Radical Tarot. Like I turned in the manuscript to my editor at the end of October, or no, November 1st,
Uh-huh.
2023, no, 2022, and then got top surgery literally 2 weeks later. Like,
Talk about a huge anniversary
big
month for
It
you.
was a big time. It was a big time for me. And then a month after that was the mass market release of Fifth Spirit Tarot,
Hmm.
my first tarot deck. That was a big time. Anyway, this really incredible thing happened after I had top surgery, which was that all of a sudden I was able to connect to like deities or spirits that I previously had like shunned away from because they struck me as like too feminine, or too like too divine feminine. I just couldn't, I had trouble connecting with those because it reminded me, it was dysphoric almost. Like it made me feel too feminine, which is what I was trying to like transition myself away from, because not because there's anything wrong with being feminine, but because for me, that's always the box I'd been put into my entire life, and it was never the right box for me. And it was a box that was supposed to dictate what I liked, what I looked like, what I did, what my career was, how I spoke to people, how I carried myself in the world. And like it was, it never fit me.
Yeah.
It's gender roles, binary gender roles and stereotypes, like those are bad for everyone. Cis, trans, non-binary, everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Um, and so like after I had top surgery, I like found myself being drawn to working with some of these more typically feminine deities, and I was like, what? And it was like it's like it's being able to feel more like myself in my body and in my existence. Um, like unlocked a door for me where I could like finally work with that, you
Ugh,
know.
yeah.
And I still like honestly, I still don't work with divine feminine, divine masculine,
Mhm.
um, because I'm non-binary. I do identify as trans, but I don't know, maybe even like agender would be a better word, because I'm just like, just this gender thing doesn't make sense to me. Like it rules parts of my life because it's how people perceive me, and it's how people assign these roles and how people decide they're going to
Expectations and
interact with
assumptions.
you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like this world that I'm forced to live in, but that makes no sense to me. You know? I'm just here in this like body, trying to do my thing, vibing, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, especially a lot of trans people, working with divine feminine and divine masculine is really wonderful and healing, especially like during the transition process. And so like I don't want to like, you know, harsh on that for anyone. My issue with it is when the gender binary of masculine and feminine is like deified, like literally enshrined as deity, as god and goddess, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's that and like nothing else.
Hmm.
And then also binary gender becomes the only matrix through which people can interact with deity, and it informs everything. It informs our magical systems. And so for me, I'm just like, this is fake. Like,
We
like,
put this on them.
yes, gender is a construct. Gender is different. Even masculine and feminine gender is different in every culture and
Hmm.
every time.
Yep.
Like, it's
Yeah.
to some extent fake. Like it's
Yeah.
just like made up. And then we're like,
Yeah.
that's God now. Like,
Uh, but is it? Or is
yeah.
it just how we are thinking of it right now? Yeah, when I was in Detroit back in February for convocation, I went to the Curtis Wright Museum, and part of one of their exhibits shows, I can't remember which country in Africa, but shows a traditional village setting, and the men in that culture were the weavers.
Mhm.
And so they had set up of all of the different weavings that they were doing, and they didn't say any, there was literally no commentary on masculine, feminine, like gender roles whatsoever. It was just a very like, this is what life was like before the transcontinental slave trade
Yes.
in this one particular village.
Yes.
This is where men and women and children and animals, and they didn't say anything explicit about non-binary or trans folk, but unfortunately, that's rather normal in these
Yeah.
days. Hopefully, someone far in the future finds this video and is like, "What in the world? Things are so different now. It's so much better."
Yeah.
Uh, and and I love things like that that just remind us that gender roles are so different across the world in all different cultures, that remind us that trans and non-binary folk have been here forever. There are a couple portraits up in the National Gallery in London, and I don't remember exactly what dates. I'm going to say 1700s, 1800s ish. That's a huge window. Go to the National Gallery in London and please do see for yourself. Eh, that are folks who are transgender, and they're on some of them, not all of them, there are little plaques that just say like who this person is and why they are up in the National Gallery. And I was like, oh, hey, look,
Yep.
more proof.
Yep.
More proof. One of the things in reading queer devotion in the section on Aphrodite, I are you familiar with the Pride tarot deck that US Games put out?
I don't have it. I know of it, but I'm not super familiar with it now. Oh,
This
wait, is that?
is the Queen of Cups
Oh,
in that
yeah.
deck. And so when you were talking about the beards and things, I was like, I wonder if Charlie realizes that
Yes.
this card exists out in the
Yes.
world.
I love it. I love it. Yes. I mean, like, and it's really interesting to me, like, the more I've learned and grown in my own knowledge of tarot and my own like spiritual practice, the things that like people intuitively understand, like even if they don't know, like even if the person who made that deck didn't go like, I don't know, uh didn't know that Aphroditos was a thing, that Aphrodite, there was a genderqueer version of Aphrodite for the listeners who was worshipped back in ancient Greece, who had a beard, like Aphrodite, Venus with a beard, and a dick. like but and also breasts. So this very like trans or genderqueer version of Aphrodite. Uh, Even if the person that made that card didn't know that, they're still like intuitively working, like picking up on these things and working on this level. And so I think that even this like really, ancient knowledge, that if even if we don't know it, like articulated in our brains, it's like there somewhere. It's like it's there, like in our bodies, maybe. I don't know. It's in there.
Yeah, absolutely. For the listeners out there, the card that I held up to the screen is the Queen of Cups from Pride Tarot, illustrated by Christy C. Rode. And it shows a white bearded individual wearing a fabulous pink short dress with some yellow and green ruffles, barefoot on a rocky promontory with the sea behind them, an octopus holding up 2 cups of tea or coffee. They have a fabulous rainbow flower headdress in their hair, a white parrot on their hand, a little teddy bear that is like attached to their heart, and stripy leg warmers and arm warmers, also in rainbow colors, with an open treasure chest on a little sandy spot in the ocean behind them.
Yeah. And
And
Christy
the
Road.
beard.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What do you, so you know Christy Road?
Well, not personally, but Christy also did the Next World Tarot. So when you held that up, I was like, is that from the Next World Tarot? And it's because it's the same artist. And that tarot deck is also definitely one that I would recommend for queer people, trans folks. It's got a lot of different body types and sizes and um, queer representation and all that sort of stuff. So really excellent. Also, Kate, you are very good at giving alt text descriptions of cards.
Thank you. Thank you. I would do it more, especially for my photographs and things, but I my voice to text software sucks, and I don't type with my thumbs well. I'm a late Gen X I'm a late Gen Xer. So, like, texting is not something I grew up with. But I try, like in the word descriptions, when I just get to vocalize it and use my voiceover and performance training, much better. Um, so um I'm feeling called to pick one of these tabs at random and let the next part of the conversation tangent from there. How's that
like
feel to you?
like some bibliomancy. Let's go.
Some bibliomancy. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just do some straight up bibliomancy. Okay. So, for those of you with books who are following along, this is Radical Tarot, page 139. Ooh, in the star.
Oh yeah.
This is a hope that casts a star map of the future in wild electric colors. This is a hope that refuses the constraints of the status quo's cold reality, even while the realists that shout that hope is silly, idealistic, not pragmatic. But tell me this. If the dreamers, the visionaries, and the activists of the world were pragmatic and realistic, if they were not bold and fantastical and, yes, idealistic, if they did not demand the impossible until it is possible, where would we be? Who gets to decide what is pragmatic and realistic anyway? The status quo, that's who. Some will say that all we have are the pleasures of this moment, is a quote that Munoz wrote. Quote, But we must never settle for that minimal transport. We must dream and enact new and better pleasures, other ways of being in the world, and ultimately new worlds. End quote.
Mhm.
The future always belongs to those who are bold enough to dream it into being. So, with that, what is your bold dream for the future,
Oh
Charlie?
gosh. I mean, first, that was a joy to hear you read my work out loud with your theater training. So thank you for that.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
and I don't know, I feel like that was a little bit of bibliomancy because, hope is something that's been on my mind a lot lately and
Yeah.
for a while. I had the pleasure of guest editing the star issue of the Rebus, which is a tarot magazine that features like creative writing and art and stuff on like a tarot theme. So
Mhm.
not just like academic tarot stuff, but like short stories and poems and comics and stuff like that. And that was very
Nice.
cool. And so I got to spend this like deep dive with the star, thinking about hope. And I'm an Aquarius, so the star is my card. Additionally, born on the 17th of the month, so star is 17. So yeah, I've had like a push-pull relationship with that card for a long time. Hope used to be really hard for me, um, because it hurt. Like I experienced
Mhm.
it as like painful,
Mhm.
because of like I'm a person that with CPTSD, and the act of hoping at a certain point when you go through trauma it can be scary. It can be almost worse to hope than to not hope because
Yeah.
hope comes with uncertainty, hope comes with risk, hope comes with um, putting yourself out there boldly, trying something different, trying to make the world better. And the lack of hope means that you can just like sit at home, hide in your corner, um, do what you need to do in order to survive, which sometimes is necessary, but won't change anything. And so I think that we're at it. I mean, I know, we all know that we are at a moment right now, um, in the US, but also in, the world at large, where fascism and far right are rising, have risen. They're here. And we're being faced with a choice of are we going to still hope? And like I'm talking about radical hope, not hope that's like, oh, I hope it's going to happen, and then you just like ignore it and don't do anything, but like radical hope of like actually letting hope and letting your dreams of what you want the world to be spur you into action, to actually actualize that. Um, like that's where we're at, and that's what we need. That's what we need. Like that's what we need. We need more than just thoughts and prayers. We need more than performative political stunts. Um, we need action. And that's the kind of hope that I was writing about in the Star. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That Munoz quote is one that like I don't know if the people viewing noticed, but like I was like mouthing along with it because like that quote has become so like important and like special and pivotal to me, about like creating new worlds. Um, yeah, I
Another
don't,
world is possible, and
yeah.
we pledge
And
to make it real.
yeah, so like for my what's my bold dream of the world? Like I don't know, one where like people can just live without being persecuted and harassed and like deported for no reason and like forced to be a certain way because of like the genitals that they were born with and wild dreams. I know. But yeah.
where food is affordable and
Mhm.
can be grown and found and foraged
Yep.
easily
We're
and
not actively
deliciously.
destroying the environment, not actively destroying the climate,
Where
trying to live
everyone
any
has
of it.
a home and a
Mhm.
place to lay their head every night safely and comfortably.
Yes, yes. There are versions of reality without capitalism. Like I
Yes,
think that's
yes,
one of
there
the
are.
biggest lies that, we've been told is that like capitalism is somehow like a natural thing. It's not. And
No,
somehow a thing that has been like permanently a fact of human civilization, it's not. Uh,
no, only for a few
capitalism.
hundred years.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
It's rather new. It
Yeah,
sucks. It's not
yeah.
sustainable because it only survives on like infinite scalability, which is why the climate is has been fucked because it
Mhm.
relies on just continual extraction from the earth, from resources, from humans.
Mhm.
There's other ways
Yeah,
of being. There's other ways of existing.
yeah.
Um,
That we did
yeah.
well and healthfully
Yes.
for thousands of years.
Yes.
And for those listeners, if you are interested in diving more deeply into the rise of capitalism, especially from a feminist lens, I highly recommend Caliban and the Witch by Sylvia Federici. That she connects the dots of history and experience in ways that I was like, why didn't I think of that? Like, I knew all of these things too. Obviously, there were some things in there that were new to me, but the overarching history didn't have anything like, oh, what was going on in Spain? Like,
Yeah.
but how how she connected the dots, I was like,
hmm
oh.
Yeah, she really shows how capitalism is predicated on the subjugation of some groups of people, specifically anyone who's not a like land-owning white male. And also shows how the devil and witchcraft was leveraged to make it acceptable to oppress and persecute and exterminate people.
Mhm,
Uh, like specifically, women, anyone who didn't like do what the overlords were telling them to do, but also especially Black people, people from Africa that were kidnapped and used for slave labor, and then the indigenous people of the Americas who were devil worshippers,
mhm.
heavy air quotes, um,
Yep.
uh, which then provided the justification for their genocide, you know? And we
Yeah.
do see some of that happening now with
Hmm.
with
Let
Christian.
us learn from history.
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm.
And with Zionism and like it's and the reason that I mean, sorry, not sorry to keep taking this into political directions, but like not sorry at all. Like witchcraft is political,
Yep.
the spiritual is political, Audre Lorde. Like
Yes.
um, we have to
And
talk.
all of that is welcome here.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't ask about that first, but
Oh, yeah. No, no, no.
uh oh gosh, what was I going to say? Now I've lost
Aud
that.
Audre
Very,
Lorde, personal is political. Sorry, not sorry that you were going to
yeah.
pull things back into a political realm,
hmm
talking about Sylvia Federici
uh
and
I
how.
I think that I was going to say something about the like using religion, specifically Christian religion, currently to
Mhm.
provide the justification for oppressing people, for
Yeah,
persecuting people,
yeah.
and for uh, the return of patriarchy. Not the return, it's never left, but like the subjugation of women again, putting women back into the home and stuff like, and then using those familiar passages from like Genesis in the Bible that are like God created man and woman, male and female, he created them, etc. If you actually like go look at like the Hebrew of the Bible, it's much more complicated than that. It's
Mhm.
not, it's if anything, those Bible verses that sexist, homophobic, transphobic Bible thumpers like to trot out as justification for persecuting anyone who's, not male or
Different.
cis or straight. Uh,
Mhm.
uh,
Wearing
if
polyester.
anything, yeah, yeah. If anything, though, those Bible verses in Genesis about the creation of humankind um, give justification for God being multi-gendered, like for God being genderqueer, for being both man and woman, masculine and feminine,
And
um,
everything in between.
and everything in between.
I
Yeah,
love how you bring that up in queer devotion, and so much yes.
yeah.
So much yes. It has long been one of the things that I've never understood about Christianity as somebody who was raised Roman Catholic and happily left the
Hmm.
church when I was younger. That's a whole other story. Um, that for an idea of a divine deity that is supposed to be so huge and vast and unknowable
Hmm.
that some, not all, that some of them would want to distill it down into this angry old white man. Who does that serve?
Angry old white
How
man.
how is that helpful for anything or anyone except fear, which of course is an excellent way of controlling people. One of the things said in the reclaiming community is where there is fear, there is power.
Yep.
And so when you can step away and outside of being reactive in fear and recognize what that actual power source is, that's when you can really start to affect the change in the world, in
100%.
yourself. And
Hmm. Yep. And I think that's devil work. That's the devil card.
ooh,
Right there. Yeah.
ooh.
For me. For
Talk a
me.
little more about that.
Yeah.
I think I understand why you say that, but I'd like to hear more, and I think our listeners would too. And listeners, if you want to type what your dreams for the world are into the chat, type your questions into the chat, please do. We will weave them into this conversation. And I do keep tabs on the chat even after the lives are done to respond. So diving
Devil.
more into that devil there,
Yeah.
Charlie.
So like devil has also been on my mind recently because I'm actually I'm working on an essay on the devil right now for the
Mm,
next issue of the Rebus.
mhm,
Which I'm excited about. But yeah, so first of all, the devil is a very like imposing looking card in the deck, usually.
mhm.
I remember the first time I drew that card, which I think I write about in Radical Tarot. I was in high school. I was like in my bedroom. It was like it appeared in like one of like the first readings I did, and I was like looking over my shoulder, like expecting like the devil to pop out of the closet or something, even
Wasn't
though
that the card that almost made you leave
yes,
tarot? Am I
yes.
remembering that correctly?
Yes. Like and as a teenager, yes. And then I had another reckoning with tarot as an adult. That's a different story. But uh even though at that point like I identified as an atheist, like I was like God doesn't exist, like still that card and that image because of my Christian upbringing, I was brought up in the Protestant church in the deep South. I grew up in Alabama. Uh, uh,
Welcome to Multnomah Chinook lands of also known as Portland, Oregon.
I love I love it here.
Same.
Um, because of the fear that had been instilled in me by that upbringing in the church, that card had the power to almost completely drive me away from tarot, which I did end up getting driven away from it as a teen, left it for about 10 years, came back to it in my late 20s. Um, and then tarot was the thing that for me kind of unlocked everything, like unlocked my whole life, unlocked myself to myself. It's how I finally realized that I was queer and non-binary and trans. It's how I realized that I needed to get a divorce. Like it was life-changing. And just that one card, because of that fear, drove me away from it for, over 10 years. And so like delayed um that realization, that coming home to myself. And so one of the ways that I relate to the devil is it's everything that controls us, or compels us against our will, which includes things like hierarchy, patriarchy, gender roles, capitalism, like these systems, because the devil is Capricorn as well. So it's related to systems and structures. It's all those systems that kind of lock us in and like force us to that impinge on our freedoms, that make it so that we can't live the lives or be the people that we want to be. Uh, and a lot of that also comes with fear, right? So it's the fear of stepping outside of those systems because then what will happen? It's the fear of like not taking like a traditional life path, a traditional career path, or a traditional like family structure or style because it's going to be harder, like that's one of the things that kept me from my queerness in the beginning. Because like I'm like bisexual a little bit, like pan, bi, I don't know. Like I said, gender just doesn't make sense to me in a big way. Um, so like when I was younger was like, well, I'm just gonna like try to be cis and straight because life will be easier for me if I do that. It was it was not easier. It was not easier. It was much, much harder. It was much harder to like deny everything that I am in the attempt to fit myself into a mold to have a quote unquote easier life. So the devil is all of those things. And the devil is also the thing that can like unlock those chains, open those doorways so that we can, move through, so that we can liberate ourselves. And that's why the next card is the Tower, which is, the fall of everything. Yes.
All
Uh,
of that intentional demolition.
yeah. And so like when I wrote Radical Tarot, the Devil chapter very much talks about, the oppression aspect, the systematic control, those sorts of things, but also a little bit about how it's not a card that's like the devil shows up because it wants us to liberate. Like it wants us to recognize those chains and the strings that are controlling us and, cut them.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and once we do that, the devil then can become this really like luscious, delicious, sexy card where
Mm.
it's like all those things that previously we kept ourselves back from for fear, we can then explore, you know?
Mhm.
And so then the devil kind of has two faces that way.
Yes, I love that so much. And I love that. I love that on many reasons, not the least of which is when I'm reading tarot, I take a very permaculture
Mhm.
view of the cards, meaning that the medicine is also in those cards.
Yes.
So rather, and sure, for the readers out there pulling clarifying cards, like no shade to that whatsoever. I absolutely also do that. But depending on what questions the Queren is asking, that that devil may also have all of those answers of what are the chains you have to throw off? What are you keeping yourself bound to? What are the habits that you are just falling into because they are easy and known and status quo, even though they don't actually serve your hopes and dreams and goals and such? And for the watchers, I have been holding up periodically the Devil card also from Pride Tarot, illustrated by Irene Lorenzi, because Pride Tarot by US Games, each of the cards has a different illustrator to it. It's not all done by one individual. And it shows a horned, sort of reddish brown individual with two figures wrapped in ribbons, bright red ribbons, sort of silk aerialist style, with a heart in the center that has some detailing that could both be veins or chains, which is
Oh, nice.
kind of interesting and unique. And both of them are blindfolded, and the ribbons that entwine their bodies are also wrapped around the horns of the
Mhm.
devil. And you mentioned a word earlier that I really want to make sure our listeners and watchers know, because I had never heard it before until Radical Tarot, and I fell in love with it because it is so much easier to say kyriarchy than all of the other things, because kyriarchy actually includes them all. And so for folk for whom kyriarchy is a brand new word, would you care to share
Yeah.
what that lovely, lovely word means for us?
Yeah, it's a word that means like the intersection of all of the intersecting, overlapping systems of power and oppression. So, it would include white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism, cis heterosexism or like transphobia, homophobia, ableism, sexism, just all of the isms that combine to create this like oppressive, like meta oppression that affects us all in different ways. And so, like, depending on our identities, depending on uh, our class status, all of that stuff. So it's a word that takes all of those, like Kate was saying, all of those other isms um, and wraps it into one word to make it easier to like talk about. At the same time, I think that it's important to name the isms, like at least once, and then we can use curiarchy as a good shorthand to be able to reference and speak about that in a more economical way. But I also wanted to show you two devil cards that I have here. These are
Yes,
from my
please.
decks, and I think it kind of shows the progression of what I was just talking about. So this one's from Fifth Spirit Tarot. This was my first deck. And it's a little bit dark, but these are like puppet master hands, and there's strings that are
Mm,
attaching to the figures down here. And they're, very like uh mm, cis het, like I don't know, Mad Men kind of couple,
mm.
like So this
Yeah,
is my
it has a 1950s
yeah, yeah, yeah,
suburb, like fake dream of suburbia feel.
absolutely, absolutely, yes. And then this is my card from the Gay Marseille, which I just published
Ooh.
this past year in 2024. And so now we've got like the devil as this like fabulous like drag queen Baphomet these two like liberated dancing people down here. You can like their chains are actually like busting and they're just like boogieing. It's
Yeah.
pretty. We've got the Thyrsus here. I replaced the typical torch that's usually in the Devil's Hand in the game Marseille with a Thyrsus, which is the staff of Dionysus.
Hmm.
Because Dionysus is the god of ecstasy and a god of liberation, which the devil invites us into our liberation, right? We just have to do that sort of like shadow work first, right? With
Yeah.
figuring out the ways in which we are being controlled, the systems that we are acquiescing to and taking part in that don't ultimately serve us, like Kate was saying. So then we can get to this fun one.
I I especially love the detail of the burlesque tassels
Yeah.
because in so many pictures of Le Diable that I've seen, there have been interesting things around the devil's nipples in lots of I don't have any to hold up, but consequently I very much love and appreciate that little
Thing.
detail
I had
there.
fun. I had fun with this deck. I had a lot of fun with the game Marseille, and its spirit is very like cheeky, fun, like queer joy in, you know, queer joy as like resistance sort of vibes. So
Yes, which is a perfect segue because we are already at the last 9 minutes of our conversation. So, where, if people want to purchase your decks, pre-order Queer Devotion, where where can they go to get more Charlie?
yeah, well, you can find a lot of my stuff wherever you can buy books. So like Radical Tarot, Fifth Spirit Tarot, and then Queer Devotion. You can find pretty much wherever, but I you can find links to a lot of those places on my website, which is thewordwitchtarot.com. Um, and you can buy some of this stuff for me. You can't buy Queer Devotion for me yet because it's not out yet, but you can buy all this other stuff there. The game Marseille is only available through me or through a couple other shops like Little Red Tarot in the UK and Salon des Arcanes in France. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can find me on the socials at the.word.witch on Instagram and on Blue Sky, where I've honestly been like tearing it up over there. Like, I'm trying to like de-meta my life because fuck Zuck. Um, and so I've been spending less time on Instagram and more time on Blue Sky, and my handle there is just the word witch, no periods. Um, so yeah, you can find me on there too. Um,
Great. I will find you there. I don't remember what my handle is there. I don't remember if I'm Kate Mura or Group Tarot or Theatrical Kate or a combination therein.
you should
See,
find it and post it in the description.
I will, and I will post all of your things in the description as well. And for uh, friends of Group Tarot, we are winding down on season 2 of Conversations, and I need some input from all of y'all because I have been accepted into grad school. So I will be moving to England for grad school come the end of October, the end of August.
Oh my God.
So do you want these conversations to continue or not? Or
Yes.
we I'm going to be doing more theater and voice work. I'll be getting my master's in Linklater voice technique, which I love because it is at it recognizes that our bodies are channels and our voices are uniquely our own. And as we clear our physical and psychological and emotional blocks, we can use our voices in our authentic, unique, powerful, potent ways that this world needs right now, has a whole social justice component and weaves in with Augusto Boal theater of the oppressed work. And so do you like what interests you for season 3 of Conversations is, I guess, where I'm actually going with that question. Let me know in the chat, reach out via email. You can always get a hold of me, Kate at grouptarot.com, KATE at group GROUPTAROT.com. Um, Charlie, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so
And
much. And congratulations on grad school. It's amazing. It also
thank you.
sounds like so rad.
I Rose Bruford College outside of London is pretty fucking awesome. They
Right.
have a queer theater MFA. They have a lot of social justice work. I'm starting to plug into the London and UK reclaiming community that is getting ready to have a really fantastic conversation that I hope I'll be able to make on land acknowledgements in countries that like were the beginning of all of were a beginning of colonial oppression and have a very different relationship with what it means to acknowledge land and their ancestry. And I'm like, ooh, like, yes. Like, yeah, I don't have an opinion yet. I am not like I'm English in ancestry, but I am new to I will be new to your lands. So like where are you thinking right now? And um one of there was an interview that I've looked and looked for the video and I can't find it and I don't know, and it makes me sad because it was a really beautiful interview with the founder of La Mama, who talks about how what we really should be afraid of is the lack of imagination
Mm,
and what we can do, especially those whose marginalized and oppressed identities, like for their own safety,
mm,
they need to
mm.
be quiet, they need to be closeted, that they can still dream
Yeah.
big. They can still dream of those being liberated from those devils and the juicy sexiness that can come from that you were talking so beautifully about, Charlie. And so you uh you mentioned the what I'm going to call like what I'm going to call small dreams, not because I think they are actually small, all of the systemic work to get to the place where we are just all allowed to exist with respect and kindness has a lot behind, like there's a lot to do there. And for the flights of fancy, what what is there like a big, fabulous, seemingly seemingly completely out of reach dream that you have for yourself or the world that you would like to put
Mm.
some voice and magic and air to?
I mean, I think that my big thing right now is very much about community, you know? Like I for me personally, I have like a dream of this is also like a very practical sort of retirement plan, but Um,
Okay, that's
I
well.
have a dream of like living in like community with, my like friends, other like chosen family people, so that we can all like help each other, like live in a totally new, like different model, support each other as we age, help take care of each other's children, that sort of thing. But I also think that that is something that we're going to have to do. Um, on a large scale, I mean, on a large scale and on a like a very hyper local scale in order to get through what's coming for us. By which I mean not just like, the Trump Musk administration, but also climate change, climate apocalypse. Uh, like reframing community as something that's not like just this like individualistic, like I retreat to my house and then like I go out and like do a thing with people and then I retreat back to my house, but instead is a thing where it's like our our pride and our integrity depends on like the well-being of everybody in the community, which includes people who under this model would not be houseless because we would make sure they have a place to live and make sure they have food to eat and just really just I think that like it's gonna take a whole reframing of like the idea of uh individualism um versus community and of wealth and what wealth is. Like wealth not as, money in the bank, generational wealth that you pass on to only like your children, but wealth as like the wealth of like connection and like support that we have mutually and communally to, support each other so that we are confident that we will never be left out in the cold, which is not something that we can say under capitalism
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
something like that.
Thank you so much. And I hope to see all of you back here next month at 11 a.m. Pacific. Have a beautiful day.